Welcome to Box Out Banter. Our stock is climbing very, very high. Hopefully it doesn't go down anytime soon. Chris Okamura, Jordan Christmas. How's it going, Jordan?
It's going good. Now we are the 1000th podcast to make a stock reference joke.
We are.
Given the last 3 days. But speaking of stock up, the Jazz lost finally, but they have been the stock up has been going for the Jazz recently.
I did want to talk about stocks and stock up and stock down. We talked a little bit about the Wizards last week. Before that, breaking news here: Lamelo Ball stock going way up. He gets his first start tonight.
The price of the brick is going up.
I'm so excited.
I am too. About time.
Yeah, he should have been starting 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, honestly, I would have started it immediately, but I don't know if
rookies
don't get that.
Yeah, I don't know if I would start him immediately just because we didn't know Devontae Graham was going to be a piece of garbage this year. But
right,
in general, I think that Lamelo has outplayed him significantly and deserved the starting spot. And it'll be interesting to see sort of how he adjusts to that. And if he can get a flow going. It seems to me like every time I watch the Charlotte Hornets, whenever Lamelo gets it going and gets the flow going, they take him out. And I don't quite understand it.
Yeah, I remember, what was it, a few games ago, James Borrego said something like, if you're not going to play any defense, you can't be getting me 5 turnovers. And I'm just like, well, that's kind of the thing with Lamelo, right? Is like he takes a bunch of risk. He'll do some wild shit. And yeah, he'll struggle on the defensive end. He's a rookie, but he'll make splash plays. He'll play the passing lane. He'll get the steal, or he'll, dunk it on top of Domantas Sabonis' head on a putback dunk, which was ridiculous, by the way. But yeah, it's about time. I have been really impressed with Lamelo. It seems like the team gets it to a flow. Even though sometimes maybe the plus minus stuff, and that's always noisy, doesn't necessarily bear out in his favor. It seems like the team gets in more of a flow. Lamelo always has his head up. He always sees passing angles that
the guys just run. It's the incentive to run, right?
Yeah, it's the incentive to run. Him and Miles Bridges have an awesome connection already, or they have had a great connection since the start of the season. But I'm excited, man. Yeah, PJ Washington, like that, like we've talked about a bunch. Like the Hornets have pieces to where they could be a fun team, and right now they're the 8th seed in the East, and as we expected, like the play-in / 7th and 8th seed, teams, they're not as bottom feedery as a bottom feeder East teams of yesteryear, but the Hornets being in the mix for like I had him at the beginning of the year. I had him in my tier 4, those fries you find at the bottom of the bag, and they're kind of playing above that. It's like when you find extra curly fries at the bottom of the bag. Yeah, fire, right?
Ooh. Yeah.
And then so they're 8th right now. They're behind the Cavaliers. Like they're both 9 and 11, but no, the Hornets are a little bit ahead of schedule.
You know what they are? They're when you order normal. They're when you order normal fries and you're eating them, and all of a sudden there's one curly fry in there. You go,
yep.
Whoa, where did this come from?
Yep. I know what you mean. But I'm excited. I'm gonna be where we're recording right now, and the game between the Heat and the Hornets is about to start. But I'm definitely gonna be watching that game later tonight. Because that is going to be a good test anyway, because, Jimmy Butler's back, Bam's back. The Heat are starting to get their full complement of players back because literally they've had like 10,000 injuries and, health and safety protocols.
That's one of the teams that I'm buying stock on right now at this point.
Me too.
Like, people are overreacting to their record and sort of how they perform the early part of the season when they don't realize that, like, they've had 8 players this entire time.
Yeah, I didn't know who Gabe Vincent was until the Heat played the 76ers in back-to-back home games. They had like 8 players, and but they have Bam back. And by the way, Bam is like quickly ascending to becoming a superstar. Especially
want
with
to
the
see a little
weak.
more consistent shooting, but like, yeah, he's starting to
He's
figure out.
making his mid ranger. That's the one thing I wanted to see this year. Like his mid range jumper he's shooting it at a pretty high efficient clip, and that was like I don't think he's ever going to be a good 3-point shooter, but the mid range game, like I could see him. That's definitely a pet shot of his. He has handle already like a guard, and of course we all know he's tough as hell. But now we like I'm a Heat fan, but now that now that the Heat have Jimmy Butler back, I'm buying stock on the Heat. Not
Yeah, I always
like
saw
Dogecoin, but it's pretty close to it.
I always saw Bam as like I always called him mini Anthony Davis because he has like the fluidity that like not to the same extent. Like Anthony Davis is kind of a freak athlete when he comes to like
You don't
moving
want to
like a
have that
guard.
Josh Eberle take.
No, like but they do have similarities where I'm like, oh, I can see the fluidity and the movement and like just the
Yeah,
athleticism there, but he
but
doesn't
that's where
have.
it kind of
That's
stops.
kind of where it stops, and you go like, oh, like if Bam keeps progressing, he could hit the point where you're like, oh, I can see them being pretty comparable. But like, he just does everything Anthony Davis does to a lesser extent,
I think
right?
he's a better passer than Davis, but everything else Davis does
Yeah,
like on a tier that's like obviously it's a superstar level tier. And that's the leap that I think that's the transformation we're seeing Bam make this year.
right. Like he's getting closer and closer and closer, right?
Yeah, Nikias Duncan of Basketball News. He's a Heat fan, but he is one of the smarter people that I read, and not like smart as in like, oh, he's an analytic driven. Like he's a film guy. He's a huge Heat fan, and he wrote a really good article about Bam's transformation. I wouldn't go as far as he did by saying he's becoming a top 10 player, but I could see the trajectory he is on, like by next year or
He's a,
2 years
have
from
him on.
now.
I have on my top 10 prospects list, like my top 10 up and comers list.
Oh yeah, he's an up, but he was a borderline star last year. I mean, he was a offensive hub for them, and this year he's
Yeah,
taking another leap. So it's a
I
good
think
test for the Hornets, though.
I think he is honestly the most important piece of that team. Beside, like Jimmy Butler, obviously is the leader and the star of that team. But I think that Bam is more important for how
Jimmy has
their
said that Bam
entire
is the
team
soul of the
works.
team.
Yeah, it's like everything centers around what Bam does offensively and defensively, right? It's sort of the same way that the Lakers play around Anthony Davis, where yes, LeBron is the star and LeBron is kind of the major piece of that team, but like everything plays around Anthony Davis, right? It's
Yep.
how all the pieces flow around that offensively and defensively, right? And so Bam kind of fits in that same spot. They put him in the Jokic spot and that Draymond spot, and just
Yep.
have him kind of
The
distribute
elbow
and
foul line area.
just
High
make the
post.
read. And they've run more dribble handoffs than I've ever seen any other team run ever.
Yep, because they have those deadly shooters with Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. Well, Tyler Hero's been struggling a bit this year, but he's a good shooter. He's gonna bounce back.
I think he is better when I like Tyler Hero more going to the basket than I do him shooting. I like him attacking, and I think him attacking opens up his 3-point shooter. I don't consider Tyler Hero a 3-point shooter. I think of him more as sort of a well-rounded offensive player. Or like Duncan Robinson.
Well, he was known for he was a knockdown shooter coming out of college. He might not be like elite, but I could definitely see him hit 40% like a few times in his career. Like he's going to be a high 37 to
again.
39
I think he's a great 3-point shooter, but I think like I don't like him when I
has
think
more dynamic.
Shooter, like when I think 3-point shooter, I think of like the JJ Redicks and the Duncan Robinsons, and right, and like the Klay Thompsons, right? I think of
he
that.
Has some handle,
like
some wiggle.
He has a lot more to his game than that, and I don't want
definitely.
I just think it's dangerous when you have the media and fans and everything call him a 3-point shooter, where like I feel like that kind of puts him in a box that he could really do more,
right? Because he could definitely, we saw it in the playoffs. I mean, he's ran pick and roll. He's made big shots. He attacked the rim with ferocity, especially against.
Now, let me clarify. I don't want him as a primary playmaker the entire game. I don't think he's that. I think he is better at the off guard, but I do not want him standing there taking dribble handoffs and trying to launch threes all game. There's a balance.
Of course. There's a balance with everything. But Yeah, I'm with you though. I'm buying Heat stock. I think one of these teams, well, one of the bottom feeder teams, whether it's the well, I got to come up with a better term for the bottom feeder teams because I've been impressed with the Cavs, even though they have lost 2 in a row recently. The Knicks have been playing hard and playing better. They have some fun players that I like. The Raptors, they're starting to find themselves a little bit after really struggling to start the year. But it's going to be an interesting battle here at the bottom half of the conference, to say the least. But we're about over a quarter of a way through the season. So I wanted to get your take on the Utah Jazz. So the Utah Jazz, they just lost yesterday. They took a sledgehammer that was named Nikola Jokic, and they got destroyed by the Nuggets yesterday. But before that, they won 11 in a row. They have the offensive and defensive profile and shot profile of a contender. Honestly, quite frankly, they are playing like the team I thought we were going to see last year, and that's with Bojan Bogdanovic still finding his way, especially coming off the injury. Yeah. So I wanted to get your first glance opinion on the Utah Jazz.
I like them. I like them better defensively than I did before this. I think that they're scheming really well. Donovan Mitchell's doing a better job of kind of being a team defender. And sticking kind of, he's still not a great on-ball defender, but he's doing a lot better kind of getting deflections and being active on the defensive end. But I'm still very iffy on them offensively, just because I still don't trust Donovan Mitchell offensively. And this could be, again, my bias or just me not. I've seen it too much where he gets hot and then all of a sudden when it matters and when they need it later in the season, it just disappears.
It didn't in the first round series against the Nuggets last year. That's kind of like the one time it didn't. But like I've just seen him in the last couple of years where it's like, okay, it's second half. You need him to go off. You need to have your assertive. Here's your star moment here, and it never comes. And also, I don't like him as a volume scorer. I think he's pretty low efficiency. I know he hasn't for this stretch here, but just kind of historically, he's been pretty low efficiency. And so that, like, again, I think they're playing really, really well now, but I just have this thing with the Jazz, having watched them the last couple of years, where I kind of have a bias of like, I don't know if this is going to last. Well, I definitely the questions about their playoff ceiling, I could see why you would have concerns about that, because I have my concerns about that too. I will say though, there's different elements of this team that make me think that, we could be proven wrong here. Like Mike Conley, he is honestly, he's been revived, and he struggled out of the gate last year. He got injured and we all kind of wondered, okay, is this kind of it for Mike Conley? Is he kind of washed up? But he's back basically to Memphis Mike Conley. He's averaging nearly 17 a game. He's shooting 40% from 3. He's averaging 6 assists per game. So it's basically, if you look at some of his Memphis years, it's kind of more in line with that. And also, more importantly, he's found his way in this offense. Him and Gobert's pick and roll combination has been so much better this year. Yeah. They have awesome chemistry. And also, Rudy Gobert is I know people want to rail Rudy Gobert for his contract and stuff like that, but he is still an elite defender and he transforms defenses. And the Jazz have, per Cleaning the Glass, the third best defense still, and that's largely because Gobert is a monster. Of course, you still have good team defenders like Joe Ingles. It's never going to be a fast, quick twitch one-on-one defender, but he's a good team defender. He's smart. Donovan Mitchell, same. Mike Conley, he's always been solid on that end, even if he has lost a little bit of a step at 33. But the Jazz, they take the right amount of shots. They have shooters everywhere, and I like when a team that has a lot of shooters take the majority of their shots from 3. I think they take 45% of their shot attempts from 3, and the rest at the rim. Jordan Clarkson has been a revelation. People were like, whoa, what the hell? The Jazz signed him to a 4-year, 12 mil a year contract, or 52 mil, but it was like 12 mil a year or something like that.
Mhm.
But Jordan Clarkson is in the running for sixth man of the year. Like, he's a heavy favorite. He's averaging 17 a game, shooting 38% from three. His true shooting percentage is nearly 60, and he has just been lighting teams up off the bench. And Quinn Snyder has obviously empowered him. And I could tell you from watching a lot of, shitty Laker games with my roommates, and seeing Clarkson when he got traded to Cleveland, and then last year with Utah, I could see why people like Zach Lowe and others hesitated when they were like, "Whoa, what did the Jazz?"
I'm not a Clarkson fan, but that's
what
a
did the
Laker
Jazz
bias.
give Clark? Yeah, what did the Jazz give Clarkson? But he's been showing out this year, and the Jazz have a solid like 9-man rotation. So at the very least, they have a 9-man rotation of like solid NBA players. Derek Favors backing up Gobert is really key. Now that there's an established pecking order, because remember when Favors was in Utah before, they were always trying to struggle between, should we start Gobert and Favors together? Should we stagger their minutes? But Gobert or Favors came back this year and accepted the backup role. And I just really like the basketball they've been playing. The playoff concerns later on in the year, I totally get, but they're playing some really good basketball right now, and they would be a tough out for anybody. They should have beaten the Nuggets last year, and they were a Mike Conley rimming out 3 in Game 7. We forget, like, first of all, that the end of that game was wild. The Nuggets took a layup when they didn't need to. The Jazz were trying to foul, and the Nuggets tried to take a layup, and they missed it. Conley, or the Jazz, got the rebound, advanced it up to Conley, and he shot a 3 at the buzzer, and it went in and out. So it's like that split in and out. It's like that 1 inch is the difference between, the Jazz failed again in the playoffs, or the Jazz advanced to the second round. So I think they'll be a tough out, though, in the playoffs.
And I will say too that the Nuggets and Jazz always have competitive games. Like, those games are always close. To add on to the Clarkson thing, the thing with Clarkson so I feel about Clarkson the same way I feel about Kuzma, but I think they've both turned a corner. It goes back to the thing of they're both really talented. They both have skills that they have that make them great players, or that could make them great players. But it always came down to the mindset. It always came down to, I feel like they think they're better than they are, and so they try to do things that are out of their wheelbox, and then it just ends up they end up falling flat on their face. That's how I felt about Clarkson when he was in LA and being a starter, and we didn't have anyone, and we're looking for the guy, and so Clarkson kind of took it upon himself to try to be the guy, and it just didn't. It wasn't the thing. I feel like, and then when he got traded to Cleveland, it felt like he wanted to prove himself, and so he was pressing really hard, and it just didn't work. And then now I think with the Jazz
and adjusting to playing with LeBron too.
Yeah.
That was LeBron's last year, but Clarkson got traded to the team halfway through that season too.
Right. But that was a big thing. And then so coming to the Jazz, and same thing with Kuzma now coming off the bench, I think both of them have kind of been empowered to understand I'm good at this, and the team needs me to do this. Let me just do this. And then they're doing it, and they're doing great. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of a testament that I think
they have great coaching.
Yeah. It's coaching, and then it's also growing up as a player, right? And understanding the league, understanding what you can do and your skills, and putting work in the gym, and understanding where your strengths are, and how to play in the NBA, and where you fit in the NBA. And again, that's something that's kind of come up quite a bit, talking Alex Caruso and Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson now has a podcast, but they've talked on various podcasts about finding your role and finding out what you can do. And so the line that keeps coming up is the Caruso line of I forget who told him. Was it Sam Presti? I think Sam Presti told him that everyone wants to be a CEO, but teams are looking for a guy to clean the floors or whatever, or something like that. You gotta know what teams are looking for. And so it's such an important lesson to learn. I think Clarkson's success here is sort of the perfect example of hey, he figured out what the team needed, which is for him just come out off the bench and be a volume scorer, and kind of ignite and be bench offense. And
Yeah,
he's doing
it's
a
the
great job at it.
efficiency, honestly, that's staggering to me. He's averaging a career high in points, but it's roughly around the same career average in minutes. And it's by far, I think, his if I'm looking at the rest of his seasons of his true shooting percentage, it's by far the highest of his career. And he's been integral for that Jazz team because their starting five is already good from top to bottom, but then they could just bring in Clarkson and Favors and they could run pick and roll like that. He's a quicker decision maker too. It's almost like the Tobias Harris corollary when Doc Rivers or in LA with the Clippers, Tobias Harris had his most efficient season under Doc Rivers, and they're different players, but it's kind of the same thing where it was like, all right, you're dribbling too much. You need to make two decisions. You need to pass it once you need in 2 seconds after you get the ball, you either pass it to the next guy or you take 2 dribbles max and do your thing.
Score. Yeah.
And score. And Tobias has taken that to heart, and he is once again back to his efficient days of the Clippers. And now Clarkson is now that he has his role and he's making quicker decisions, it's benefited him greatly. But this Jazz team is interesting though. But if you're talking about like, would I pick them over the Clippers or the Lakers in the West or even the Nuggets, where Nikola Jokic, to me, quite frankly, is a top 5 player full stop this year? No, I don't think the Nuggets and Jazz, that would be a closer series. But if you're asking me if it's a series between the Lakers and Jazz, no, I'm picking the Lakers. If it's a series between the Clippers and the Jazz, it's not as automatic as I made it sound with the Lakers, but I'm still taking the Clippers. And
the only reason I would even consider the Jazz is Gobert and the size. The Clippers' lack of size, like I keep reiterating every time we talk about them, terrifies me.
Well, Gobert does. The thing with Gobert is you can't play him off the court, but you can game plan for his offensive impact, because it's not like if it was the Clippers versus Anthony Davis or the Clippers versus Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid, where you have to tilt your entire defense towards them, they would get destroyed. But if it's Gobert, like if Gobert's posting up Zubac or Ibaka, I'm perfectly comfortable living with that, because I
just mean defensively as well. Like
that's true. Defensively,
the thing with me, the size, when you have someone like Gobert, especially I think we talked about it before, the Clippers don't really have any kind of rim scoring or like high efficiency shots that they can create on a consistent basis, especially against a rim protector. There's no Harrell this year that can get them inside buckets where they can just throw into the post. All their guys are drivers. And so when you have Gobert sitting back there, it completely turns you into a jump shooting team, which they kind of are anyway. And when you have,
I think the Ibaka matchup would be interesting because he'd pull Gobert out.
Yeah, he has to pull Gobert out. But then the thing is, then you're turning them into a team that's completely reliant on shooting, which is, again, I'd take that every day.
Right. Yeah, I
still think the Clippers win, but I think it's more of a toss up than like, if they played. I would trust the Nuggets more just because of I think Jokic could just tear up Gobert.
Jokic does tear up Gobert. He did it yesterday, but if it was a series between the Clippers and Jazz, I would still say Clippers at 6. But if it was like Lakers and Jazz, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers just flat out swept them or 1-5. Because as much as the Jazz are as good as the Jazz have been offensively and defensively this year, I just think the Lakers still have the best defense in the NBA. They're still not even trying. LeBron hasn't really been trying. Anthony Davis, I think, is kind of going through the motions, and also I think there's a little bit of him trying to play with Marc Gasol still. That there's some figuring out. Yeah, there's still some figuring out that team needs to do. But I mean, if you're talking about the Lakers at their best, they are killing the Jazz every time.
I don't know. Have you seen the the comments that Vogel and LeBron and AD and pretty much the whole Lakers team has made about how they're taking the season?
No. Well, I
I
can
don't know.
kind of take a guess, but
So
what have they been saying?
So they keep they get questions about the fatigue and about the like the short turnaround time and stuff like that.
LeBron was basically like, I don't get tired.
Yeah, but so basically, I think Vogel or AD said that they haven't really had practice. Like they don't practice. They have like film room and like they don't
I
really
think a
do
lot of teams
on-court.
are struggling with that.
Yeah, they don't do on court practice, so they're taking the games as practice.
That a lot of teams have been saying that too, but with a team like the Lakers, it's pretty
terrifying that
it's a scary proposition.
that they're taking this game as practice, and they are, and you can tell too with there's some weird ass lineups that Vogel's throwing out there, and you can just tell it's what happens here.
Yeah, like Harrell close it. Oh my god, when I was I mean, I'm sure you remember this possession, but when I was watching the Lakers Pistons game, there was a possession where Harrell got the ball on the left block, and he was facing up. Yeah, he was facing Mason Plumlee, and he did a jab step, jab step, jab step, jab step, and it was like 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and then he tried to take a pull up or a face up pull up jumper, and he missed it.
No, he tried to lean into him first.
yeah, and it was like this is not the offensive possession I would have chosen to say the least. He's still Vogel's still he's still tinkering with stuff, but if it
I'm perfectly fine with them taking this regular season off as long as we make the playoffs, dude. We're fine.
Yeah. Also, I have to say, I'm really digging the way the Rockets have been playing so far too.
Yes, I'm buying Rocket stock real hard too.
Yeah, their offense hasn't been as great since the James Harden trade, but they are. I think I'm pulling it up right now. They have been the second best defensive rating. They've had the second best defensive rating in the NBA since the Harden trade, which was January 13th. They have been, well, now they're first. I just updated NBA.com. The Rockets have had a 102.8 defensive rating since January 13th. And I think that just speaks to what we were talking about earlier when all the Harden stuff was really crescendoing. And, it's not a big of a distraction anymore. Boogie and John Wall were about to pull up to Rockets practice and fight James Harden if he showed up before he got traded to Brooklyn.
They're waiting in the parking lot.
Yeah, they were waiting in the parking lot for him, but then he got traded in. I really like the. I was telling you when the trade happened, I think we both said it, but I really like the makeup of this team. I know Victor Oladipo doesn't want to be there, but we know Victor Oladipo's a hard worker. He's going to show up and play no matter what. And, he talked about it on TNT the other night, last week, how he after he got traded from Indiana, he was like, I'm not sure what it is about people wanting to give up on me, but it just gives me another chip on my shoulder. And he's been that type of dude since college. And him and John Wall, it's just a really fun athletic backcourt. Christian Wood, shout out Christian Wood, process sixer, has been averaging 24 and 11 while shooting 55% from the field. And he's a mismatch on the floor at all times. They still have PJ Tucker. Jayshawn Tate has been a really interesting rookie as a kind of like a potential 3-and-D guy. They just have a bunch of interesting pieces. They still have Danuel House, Boogie off the bench, Eric Gordon. Like, they have a solid team, and I'm really they're 6-3 since the Harden trade, and I'm really interested in tracking the Rockets, man, because I really liked their roster even before the Harden trade. I wish Harden kind of gave it a chance just to see, but obviously it didn't work out. But I really like what they were doing so far.
Yeah, they're a team to me that's like a dark horse kind of like season ruiner in the playoffs. Like if they get in as the 6th or 8th seed, they can make life real rough for one of the higher seeds.
Yeah, I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
Again, I feel like I'm shitting on the Clippers when I don't mean to. They are a really good team. They're really hot right now.
It's just the Lakers really blood in you.
No, well, yeah, it's Lakers led me, but also like the speed of that backcourt, especially given the health of Kawhi and Paul George and like the course of a long season. I don't know how they're going to hold up. We saw they looked tired at the end of last year, or even in the bubble. The size of Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins, like they are a kind of matchup nightmare for so many teams. And I think like if you don't have the size or the speed to keep up with them, they could really give you some teams some trouble.
They have a bunch of quote unquote dogs on the team. Like that's the main thing. Like they're really tough. And when you have somebody, obviously, there's John Wall, there's Oladipo, there's Cousins. PJ Tucker is literally, I think he eats nails for breakfast every morning. Like he just pours out a bowl of nails and just eats it every day. They just have a really interesting team, and I really fucks with the Rockets. I really can't wait to see what they look like. I hope right now they're the 10th seed. They are a game ahead of the 11th seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. So they're in the play-in, the Rockets are, but I could see them moving up a bit. A lot of teams in the West after the 3rd seed, the Nuggets are finally starting to, find their stride. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games, but it's really bunched up. If you look at it from 5 through 10, they're all separate. 5 through 10 is separated by a game. And some of that is postponements and stuff like that, but they've all kind of been, mauling each other. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I think talking about teams that kind of were down on, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I'm fully selling all of my stock in the Trailblazers.
Oh, I am too.
I'm done.
It's not just the fact that they had the worst defense or one of the worst defenses in the NBA before the injury started.
Yeah, when fully healthy.
Now CJ McCollum's been out. Yusuf Nurkic has been out. Zach Collins still hasn't come back yet. Dame's having to carry the load on this team. I know they're 10-8 right now, and I think Dame is going to take this team to the playoffs. I think Dame is absolutely the last few years he's proved himself to be a tier 1 franchise guy, but with the injuries and everything falling apart around them, and the fact that even when healthy as possible, they had a really terrible defense. And when they brought in Covington and Derrick Jones Jr., it was like, oh, those are the wings they needed around CJ and Dame, along with Gary Trent Jr. And Rodney Hood is coming back. Nope, the defense is still terrible. Anthony Simons is now, being thrust in, getting more minutes. I'm with you. I am selling my stock on the Blazers. What I am buying tiny bit more stock in is the Warriors. I think now that they are bringing Wiseman off the bench, I think that's the right move for now. Just because I understand, you want to get your prized pick to get as many minutes as possible, but I think he could do that just as effectively as coming off the bench, because he was only averaging like 20 minutes a game anyway, starting for them. So I don't think coming off the bench is a big deal. He can also beat up on the lesser players, like the second unit and stuff like that. Kevon Looney's more experienced, but ever since Draymond came back, the Warriors have had the 10th best defense, and they have had the second best defense in terms of opponent field goal percentage. And Draymond has stabilized the defensive end, and him and Steph they have stabilized the offensive end a little bit too. And they're right around where, honestly, I thought they would be. And dude, I know it's only 20 games into the season, but I have to give credit to Andrew Wiggins, because he's playing
really well.
He has been playing really well. Good defense. He's shooting 40% from 3. He'll still do Wiggins stuff. Well, he'll do the spin move and spin into 3 people and take a bad shot. But for the most part, he has been playing hard. He has been a disruptive defender. Honestly, kind of like his Kansas days. And he has been a knockdown 3-point shooter for them. And I have to say I've been really impressed with Andrew Wiggins. And also I'm
on the other side of that coin, we have Kelly Oubre.
Yeah, I know oh my God, Kelly Oubre.
Everything that you just said about Andrew Wiggins, flip it. And
yeah, you can flip it.
Kelly Oubre.
You can flip it to Kelly Oubre. You want I have his stats in front of me. So Kelly Oubre is averaging, coming off a season where he was averaging 18 a game. He's averaging 12 points per game, nearly 6 rebounds per game, over 1 assist per game, 37% from the field, and 23% from 3. My dude Tsunami Poppy is not having a good year. Dude, his true shooting percentage, you want to take a gander at what it is?
No. I'm terrified what it is.
Well, okay, it's a good thing you said no, because it is terrifying. It's 46%.
Oh my God.
It is so far. It is like so under the sea in terms of true shooting percentage. He's seeing Aquaman. Like, that's how bad it is. Like, it's been bad. And I don't think he's gonna play this poorly, right? I think he could, at least climb out of the hole a little bit, but he has been awful, man.
Yeah, that's a big yikes.
Yeah, so I like this I still like this Warriors team. It killed me the other day. I've been watching. Okay, this is totally.
Wait till they get Lonzo.
He's available for trade. I would look into it if I was the Warriors.
Today the two teams that appeared in all of the rumors today have been the Warriors and Bulls are interested in Lonzo Ball.
They should be interested in Lonzo Ball, at least at the very least. Even if Lonzo continues shooting poorly this year, he is somebody who can be another ball handler and a smart passer, because the Warriors don't have many smart passers outside of Steph and Draymond.
Someone brought this up, and it's terrifying to think about. So looking forward, right? It's the same thing. It's the same reason why I wanted them to draft Lamelo. Where now in your offense, right? When Clay comes back, your offense is Lonzo with Clay and Steph on the wings. You have Draymond in center position, and then you have Wiggins as a 4, like a stretch 4. And like
that would be a nice closing lineup.
The floor is completely open. You can run pick and roll with Draymond and Lonzo, and that ball is flying everywhere.
Yep, and transition too, by the way, because Lonzo and Draymond love doing those kick-ahead passes.
Yeah.
Or Draymond is rumbling down the court and Lonzo can fill the lanes. Lonzo has been playing well, by the way, the last few games, because the Pelicans have finally decided, hey,
to
maybe
move.
We should play fast.
They're like, hey, we should run. We have young guys. We should run.
Also, he got a little help from Mike Budenholzer, because Budenholzer still thinks that his defensive philosophy is don't guard the 3-point line. So that helped Alonzo a little bit. So thanks for that, Mike Budenholzer.
Yeah, get the confidence up, and he's
get the confidence up a little bit. But the Lonzo to the Warriors would be really interesting. Because he brings something that the Warriors lack, like I was mentioning earlier. Because if you think about it, it's just Draymond and Steph that are really the only two really good passers on this team. And you could tell when both of them are out, it's a disaster. Brad Wanamaker isn't, exactly a world beater, even as a backup point guard. So it'd be nice it'd also be a nice change of scenery for Lonzo as well.
I like him. I still like him in New Orleans. I think the issue is kind of the logjam they have at guard now. Yeah. But I think like if they're looking to move Redick and Bledsoe. If you can move those two and you just have a guard rotation of Lonzo, Nikola Walker, and then you have Kira Lewis Jr. If you have those 3 as your guard rotation, I think that's a great thing to build around.
Yeah.
But again, those 3
you're
guys
talking about Nikhil Alexander Walker?
Yes.
Okay. I had to make sure.
Yeah. So those 3 guys, with the fucking longest name ever. The thing with those 3 guys is you have to play fast. And it comes down to and honestly, even if you keep Redick and Bledsoe, play fast, dude. You have Ingram. No one on your team benefits by playing slow. Even Steven Adams benefits by playing fast because then it makes use of he's a great outlet passer. Just have him sit defensive rebound, grab that ball, outlet that thing, and then you're hopefully taking a shot, scoring, or on the way back on defense before Steven Adams has a chance to clog up your offense. It works better that way.
I mean, I told you this last week, but I would just, if I were the Pelicans, I've been so impressed with Brandon Ingram's leaps, and I watched him a bit at Duke. Fun fact, I used to be a huge Duke fan growing up. And I didn't know that when I was, growing up, I didn't know Duke was hated, like the most hated team in the country. I just liked the name Blue Devils and Duke. It was cool. So like, I grew up with the Shane Battier, Elton Brand team, right? That won the national championship. Right. So like I'm not a Duke fan anymore, honestly. Like I still watch, I watch college basketball just more as a general fan now. But Brandon Ingram was right around that time where I started tailing off, and I watched a bit of him, and I could see the potential, but I still questioned a few things, like, was he ever going to be a good pull-up three-point shooter? Was his playmaking? Is he going to be a good playmaker? And I've been so impressed with him. I would just build around Zion and Brandon Ingram at this point, because for me, when it's team building, I think, and it's almost like in the NFL, like to me, once you have your franchise quarterback, nothing else fucking matters to me. And and for me in the NBA, if you have your established your established young talent, start building around what they do best. And they have that in Zion, who has been a lot healthier than I thought he would be, honestly. Me and you were really concerned about that going into this year. And then Brandon Ingram has taken another leap. Now, I don't know why David Griffin got the bright idea of not putting shooting around their best players, especially after what he saw last year and the success they had. But I would just focus around that. And, I would try to get assets for Lonzo. Not that I still like Lonzo as a player and the theoretical ceiling of him later on down the line. But at this point, it would kind of, the way he's been playing, I mean, I'd have to be objective and say I would not give him an extension, a $20 million extension. John Hollinger, before the season, pegged Lonzo as making 20 mil on an extension, 20 mil a year, going into the next offseason. And the way he's been playing, I don't see that. But I still think in a situation that is suited for Lonzo, like the Warriors, that would be awesome. But I would just build around Ingram and Zion at this point.
Come home, Lonzo.
Come back to the Lakers.
Come home. Can you imagine Lonzo with the Lakers? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that would be
that
would help Lonzo too. Obviously that would help Lonzo as well. But I'm all about building around, novel concept, I know. But I'm all about building once you find your guys, just start building around them,
I'm higher on Lonzo fitting with Ingram and Zion than you are. I think I still think he's probably one of the better perfect compliments for them.
I think they could. I think they could fit together. But
yeah, I think he's the piece that you want to keep. I think him and Redick are like the kind of guys that you want to keep around them. Just like kind of they're gritty perimeter defenders. They're really great, really smart, cerebral players that understand their space, understand how to space the floor, understand how to fill shooting lanes, driving lanes, all that kind of stuff. And
by the way, the Sixers should not trade anything for Redick. I will be mad. I think he's a buyout candidate, but I would not trade any meaningful assets to get Redick. That would be the first time ever in my life I'd question a Daryl Morey move, quite frankly. But it's interesting that they're on the market. I do think there are a few teams that could use Redick. I don't know why Brooklyn is in contention, because it's like, oh, do you just want to add another subpar defender? JJ Redick's always been a good team defender, but he's 35, 36 at this point. And the shooting will come back, but I just wonder how much other stuff he has to give now at this point in his career, you know?
So this is my favorite tweet I saw the other day. Where is it? I'm looking for it. Oh, here. So someone was asking about these Nets games and like Brooklyn games. And someone said it's pretty much what I would expect pickup games during the summer with NBA players would look like if they kept stats.
Yeah, like you remember, like, imagine if somebody kept stats during all those pickup games that were happening during the lockout in 2011.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what
just
I mean.
imagine
Like
that.
it just seems like, right? Like it just seems like, fuck, what is happening?
Yeah. Those games were well, obviously the games weren't broadcasted or anything, but anytime that shit was up on YouTube, I was the first one like
Yeah.
clicking on it.
Well,
Because
like, being working at UCLA, you see I see stuff all the time where I'm like, oh, he's here. Let me go take a peek. And
yep.
like you like watch these guys go, and you're like, man, like you get a good sense of like,
Have you ever? So I'm assuming you've gotten a gander at the Rico Hines pickup games.
yeah, um, there's a lot of those games. I don't want to say they're not competitive, but the guys are just shooting in the gym.
Yeah, I mean, if they went as hard as they did playing professional basketball in a pickup game, there would be injuries for sure.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going at 110%.
Yeah, I mean they're not they're they're just kind of shooting in the gym and getting a light
Working
workout
on
in.
their game. Yeah.
But man, it's so funny to watch because you're like, man, they are scoring so easy.
Yeah, like that's why it's like people. I'm always amazed. Well, I do it too sometimes, but like whenever Ben Simmons posted, pickup game videos like 2 summers ago, he posted like a bunch of them, and everybody was getting hyped because he was taking jumpers, he was hitting fadeaways over like Devin Booker and a bunch of NBA players and stuff, and he looked like a completely different player out there. But then I'm watching, and then I'm like, wait, everybody's just
jogging
getting
around.
a light jog in, working on different parts of their game and all that stuff. Like, this isn't real. And then, what do you know? It wasn't.
Yeah, so it's something too that's funny is like NBA players. I don't think people realize like a bad NBA player is still a really good fucking basketball player.
Well, yeah, 450, only 450 jobs open. Yeah.
So, it's not like the guy on the bottom of the Knicks bench, like the 15th man on the Knicks bench, can still hit open threes and open shots and look like an absolute monster against like subpar or half trying defense.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like when you see some of those games, you're like, oh, like, yeah, of course it makes sense that Durant has 80 points right now, and I haven't seen him miss a shot yet.
Like, somebody probably thinks Wayne Ellington is a scrub right now, but if he showed up at your LA Fitness, he would give everybody
I've told you. I think I told you about the Gilbert Arenas story.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. So for our listeners, tell the story. Tell the Gilbert Arenas story.
So, one of my best friends grew up with, or one of my best friend's older sisters went to school with Nick Young. Nick Young went to high school at Cleveland High School. It's like 5 minutes from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And so we grew up with Nick Young kind of just around. And then so when he gets to the NBA, obviously he's playing with Gilbert Arenas, he's playing in the Wizards. We ask him all the time, all his questions, all this stuff. He tells us stuff, whatever. Then, and Nick still lives around here too. I see him every once in a while, but he still lives around in this area. But one day, I was going with my friends to go play basketball, and I get a call. I call Nick. I'm like, hey, would you want to come hang out? Whatever. He's still in the NBA.
Look at this guy point. Calling Nick Young.
Well, because it's like calling your older brother at that point, right? You're just like, hey,
yeah, I'm just giving you shit.
Yeah, and so he's like, nah, I'm going to 24-hour fitness. I was like, can we come? And he's like, yeah, we're just gonna play in the gym. And I was like, all right, cool. And so it's if anyone is in the Valley in LA, in the Northridge 24-hour fitness. It's really nice. This is a couple years ago when it was brand new, but you used to see players going there all the time. Like Terrell Owens used to be there all the time. And
Terrell Owens is a terrible basketball player.
Well, let me tell you,
he's athletic as hell.
He's athletic as hell,
yeah,
and he can dunk,
yeah.
but he can't shoot and he can't dribble.
Yep.
So all he can do is run, cut, and dunk. That's all he can do.
I'm remembering the celebrity games that he did. He really was a terrible basketball player.
And when he plays defense, he fouls. Like he uses his strength and his body, like so he locks you in. He doesn't play defense.
Yeah.
He just tries to use his arms to like bully you into place. Anyway, side note. But we show up there and Gilbert Arenas is there. And of course, we grew up where Gilbert Arenas was hibachi and like going
Agent Zero. Yeah.
Right. And like this guy's fucking crazy. But Gilbert Arenas, this is like a couple years after he had retired, so he's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a little hefty.
Gilbert Arenas was definitely eating the hibachi instead of dealing out. And so he's a big dude. And so I forgot how old I was. I was in college, so I'm in my head. I'm like, I can do work. It's Gilbert Arenas. I'm
God!
all right. So we took turns guarding Gilbert Arenas, and that dude gave us buckets, and like shook me out of my shoes, kind of crossover moves. And I was like, big man, not supposed to move like that.
You were like, Nani?
Nani? Yeah, he's not supposed to do that. This dude's ginormous, and he's like, he's still got some shake and some shimmy, and you're like, what is going on? He's nailing jumpers. He's going to the basket. He's using the doughiness to go to the basket. I was like, this is a different Gilbert.
Yeah, now he has the heft to do the old man back your ass down.
Yeah, he has the junk in the trunk moves. Like, oh my goodness. But yeah, and so that's when I learned, like, all right, NBA players. I knew this already, obviously, but like, there's NBA players are like different.
Still, though, when you see it in person for yourself, you get the wheels turning a little bit. You're like, I don't know. I think I could maybe. I think I could hang.
I kind of knew it too because we grew up with. So when I was doing some internships at or just kind of volunteering at my local my middle school, and Jason Kidd's son used to go to that was in one of my classes that I was working on or working with. And so, that kid was super good. And I was like, okay, I could see why. I could see where this kid's coming from. And then his dad came in one day, and this was old Jason Kidd. This was like Mavericks Jason Kidd. And he's not playing, but he's just kind of shooting around, hanging out with the kids and signing autographs or whatever, just hanging out with his son, right? And I didn't try to play him or anything, but like I just watched him shoot in the gym, and I was like, man, Jason Kidd can't shoot, and he's nailing wide open threes in this gym, and I'm like, okay, maybe Jason Kidd can shoot. And then so stuff like that, right, where you're like, all right, I'm not quite sure. And then like Jordan Farmar went to my high school or went to my middle school.
Wow,
so
that's a throwback.
Too. Yeah, so like but like Farmar, the thing with Farmar when I played against Farmar was the thing that. It was the thing of, oh, he's still young and he's still like in his NBA prime. So like maybe that's why. But like playing against Gilbert, where it's like he's clearly done. He is clearly not anywhere close to the player he was before.
Yeah, that knee injury that basically made him retire and all that stuff. Yeah,
and he's still just killing us.
Still just giving you buckets. That's funny. It's funny because a few weeks ago, I saw a tweet. It was like Gilbert Arenas was kind of James Harden light. And I actually agree with that. So it got me thinking when you were talking about how hefty Gilbert Arenas was giving you buckets. I was like, it's kind of like how hefty Harden is still giving people buckets right now in the NBA. I don't have... Well, you're making it more and more apparent that I need to move to LA someday, first of all. Because of all the proximity with all these players and all these hoop legends. But I have a pickup story that's not as cool as yours, but we ended up... So my dad was a high school teacher back in Bakersfield. He became one of the best in the district. And so, he had a lot of connections and stuff. So we found an open gym at a high school over the weekend. And so, he invited me to go. It was like early in the morning. I said, yeah, I'll go. He was telling me that a professional, his name was Joe something, but he was a professional from overseas, or he played overseas and, had retired for a few years. And Joey Porter's nephew the linebacker Joey Porter, the linebacker for the Super Bowl champion Steelers. Yeah, his nephew also came out because Joey Porter had a house in Bakersfield. He lived in Bakersfield, and so we went to the pickup game, and it just became apparent he was like 6'9". I was like, holy shit! Like I've never like. I played in high school against some tall people, but like at that point, that was probably the tallest person I had played, especially in a pickup game.
I've never seen humans this size.
Yeah, it was like, okay. And he was like, he's probably late 30s, early 40s, and he was dunking, running the floor. And Joey Porter's nephew was actually kind of decent. A little ball hoggy, but he was still kind of decent. And I remember the funny part of this story is that I think I was like 17 or 18 at that point. And me and my dad were on opposite teams. And so I end up playing the passing lane, and I get a steal, right? And so my dad is already back towards the basket, and I'm like, I get the steal, and I'm rumbling down the court, and I'm about to go up for a layup. And so my dad fouls the shit out of me. Like, he fouls me. I'm going up for a layup. He like hits my arms, and I was already kind of starting to jump in the air, and like my body ended up being horizontal to the ground. And I hit my head on the hardwood, and like I could feel like not blood or anything, but like I see water like just disperse everywhere from my face and shit. And I was fine. Like I was fine. I didn't get a concussion or anything. I still played, but my dad just gave me like a hard like Kurt Rambis-esque foul. Yeah. And he realized what he did, and he was like, oh shit, or like, are you okay? And all that stuff. And then somebody in the back was just like, well, somebody didn't do their chores over the weekend. In retrospect, it was hilarious. But yeah, I found out that day that my dad it was like no easy baskets.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny. We used to play 3-on-3 in my backyard. We have a small half court set up in our backyard, and so when I was in college and high school, we used to play all the time with my friends, but my dad's friends, all that kind of stuff. So one of my dad's friends, Davey, he's a bigger dude. He's like, I think 6'4", maybe shorter than that, maybe like 6'2", 6'3". Yeah. And really aggressive. Like, think Montrezl Harrell kind of style. Like, that's how he plays. Like, he's real active, aggressive. Shot. Yeah, like that's all it is, right? And like once the ball goes down there, like he's not kicking it back out. Like he's
this
going
is your
up.
Dad.
No, this is my dad's friend.
Oh, okay.
And so like, he's just going up, right? And so I know this, right? So I know not to go in there. And so I know to stay on the outside and just wait for this ball, like, whatever. And so I had braces at the time. And so all of a sudden, so it's a close game and it's getting kind of intense, and ball goes in, and I see him start to do his swing move, like his rip through. And I see it, and I see the ball, and I go, and I dive in real quick, and I just swipe at it, and I get it, and I knock it out. And I start to go to pick it up, and he just dives at it, and like throws some bows to get me out of the way. And I just get whacked in the face, and I fall backwards, and I go, bro, and obviously he scores whatever, and I get up, and the whole like left side of my brace is off my mouth.
Oh my god!
And I was like, holy shit! And my dad goes, holy shit! And so I run inside to like look in the mirror, and my mom goes, what's wrong? And she looks at me, and she runs. I hear her run outside and go, who the fuck hit my son?
Hey, don't fuck with a mother's kids, man.
Yeah, and I was like, no, it's okay. It's so funny. It's such a funny thing.
Who hit my baby?
Yeah, who hit my son? I was like, oh shit. But yeah, man. Oh, another funny story, real quick too. We were talking about it. So when I was at LCS. So LCS is the League of Legends, North American League of Legends league, and so we were sitting in the back in the back of the studio, not in the back, like it's like a lounge area for like the players to eat and the like staff to eat and hang out, and then like guests, and like if you want to bring guests or anyone backstage, like that's the place you hang out and watch the games or eat. It's like a full bar and sitting area.
Yeah.
You can find videos of it online, whatever. But so anyway, we're sitting back there, and we're most people that are in esports, like there's a pretty big crossover between sports fans and esports people that work in esports and love video games, stuff like that. Like, you know, like us, right? Like, you know, they're pretty big crossover that play and stuff like that. And so we had just played some pickup with a couple of people that I think the day before or the week before. And so we were talking some shit. We were just hanging out. And so we started talking about it. We were like, hey, we should get a league together because Riot Games is across the street from the studio, and they have a full court. Like they have
Wow.
Because it's a game dev studio, right? Like of course they have the amenities and like all that kind of stuff. So they have a full court. So we were like, hey, you know what we should do? We should have all of the LCS teams put together, pick up basketball teams, and then we can play the LCS in basketball. So whatever LCS matchup is that week, we play that team in the basketball league too.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Like that's a fun idea, right? And we can stream that, and we can have a fun time. And then we thought about it. We're like really getting involved in it, right? And then I completely forgot. Fucking Rick Fox and Jared Jeffries walking in the room because Echo Fox is up next, and they walk in the room. They're like, "What's up, guys? What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh,
you're like, never mind."
I was like, "This is a bad idea." Like immediately it went from "this is awesome, we should do this" to everyone was like, "Oh, this is a bad idea."
Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, nope.
I was like,
funny.
I was like, I think Echo Fox just wins this league.
Yeah, that's funny. I also like, this is totally our podcast because now we're talking about our pickup store, our pickup game store.
Whatever.
I love it. I do. So we should take a break from the pickup stories though, because I do have a few questions to ask you before we dip out. So I want to know about a quarter of a way through the season, and I kind of did this on my podcast last week when I had a Nick Agar Johnson on, but I want to know so far through, you know, more than a quarter of a way through the season. I'm wondering if you have a top three, you can say it, but I'm wondering who your MVP is so far through more than a quarter of a way through the season.
So I have Embiid is one. I think he's far.
Okay,
and away,
I do too.
Yeah, I think he's far and away the best player in the league at this point in terms of how in terms of performance. I don't mean best player in the league in terms of like I'd take them to start a team, but like, you know, in terms
impact
of
and all that, yeah,
and how they're performing and stuff like that. Like, yeah, Embiid to me is most important. I have LeBron either 2 or 3, which is insane.
I have him too.
Which is insane given the amount of effort that he has given to start this year. And then I have Durant.
Okay. All right. So you kind of had the same list as Nick last week. I was struggling between Durant and Jokic because I think the Nuggets' struggles are mostly independent of Jokic. Like, I think Jokic is not the problem there.
Yeah.
Like, Jamal Murray to me hasn't capitalized off the crazy playoffs he had, and that was kind of the fear going in with him. It was like,
I knew that was going to happen. He doesn't. He shows up for big games and he disappears the rest of the time,
which I think is valuable because like he has shown up in the playoffs now, and it's kind of like we have to take that into consideration. But like regular season, it's like, okay, like he's kind of back to like that 16 to 18 point a game scorer who will get hot on occasions, have a hot 2 weeks or whatever. But they also lost Jeremy Grant and Torrey Craig, Michael Porter Jr. Even in the game yesterday when the Nuggets were killing the Jazz, Michael Porter Jr. got lost on defense so many times. The Nuggets announcer was just like, Michael lost that guy in the corner, and that's why they got the wide open three. Yeah. Like, even he started calling it out. And so, because Jokic, to me, he looks faster. His defense has gotten better. I always, whenever we talk about bad defenders, that reputation kind of sticks, even if they improve and kind of, you know, prove that narrative wrong. This kind of sticks with them. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Jokic is a top flight defender or whatever, but the dude is so good offensively. And it would be such a damn shame because the all NBA team's kind of archaic with positions. if Embiid and Jokic have to be on the first team for me. Like they have been so great, but I have Embiid 1, LeBron 2, Jokic 3, Durant 4. I'm then probably Paul George and Kawhi. You can alternate between those two, and then Giannis, because I went on this rant last week, but it's ridiculous that Giannis was disqualified before the season even started from winning, because it's kind of the reverse argument of the LeBron thing, right? Because LeBron could win MVP every year. And it's like, yeah, he could, but if he's coasting while still being great, by the way, like LeBron is still great, even when coasting. If other players have a better regular season, then they should win the regular season award. If you want to include the playoffs, the NBA should just say, okay, we're going to include the playoffs too, right?
Well, my thing is with, well, okay, to me, it comes down to the thing of like, this is why I hate the name MVP, because the idea of most valuable player, just the name of the award, it means so much different stuff for different people.
Yep, it's a convoluted definition,
and like to me, a lot of people just say it as like, who's the best player that season.
Yeah.
Well, okay, to me, the best player is going to be LeBron, always.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the performance of the other play. Like, if your definition is the best player of that season, then yeah, it's LeBron every year.
Yep.
If your definition is who has the best season overall statistically or whatever, then yeah, we'll just go by numbers and stats. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, it depends on how you want it. Everyone is going to have a different opinion on what is valuable and what that award means and what it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the issue. To me, the reason why I didn't think I thought LeBron was the MVP last year. But again, like, and to me, I don't disqualify Giannis. My thing is, with Giannis, it's hard to give it to him when I just know that he's not that good a basketball player. In terms of like, and again, I say this half jokingly, right? But the thing is, like, Giannis could be 3-4 times better than he is now if he learned how to play basketball.
Yeah, it's like what Gilbert Arenas was saying. What was it about Harden and Giannis? Well, more so Giannis than Harden.
Yeah,
I still think I don't think I wouldn't have Giannis try to develop a 3-point shot. He's gotten a little bit better he's starting to find like a pet mid-range shot and like a hook shot, which is encouraging signs. But yeah,
he just needs moves that aren't just bulldozed to the basket.
Yeah, that isn't easily predictable. But
he needs to know, he doesn't understand spacing or like how to cut yet. Mm-hmm. He really doesn't. He doesn't understand like where the open spot on the floor is going to open up, and you can see it too. If he doesn't have the ball in his hand, he's really quite confused as to where to stand.
I also think it's coaching too, because I think Giannis is smart enough to know that stuff, but I think Mike Budenholzer, I have come to realize he's not a good coach, because like it's like what Bill Simmons has said, and this is like the second time in my life I've agreed with Bill Simmons, but Giannis should be like Shaq, or he should be playing pick and roll with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. And Mike Budenholzer, for some reason, doesn't like doing that, and he doesn't like changing his philosophy. And I don't like coaches that aren't malleable. And the fact that Giannis is still putting up historic numbers that he does have, and he has taken his team to the conference finals. And yes, the last playoffs was bad, but in the year before that, they were an overtime away from going up 3-0, and that series is over.
Yeah.
So I do want to give Giannis credit there, but there are things still he can work on. You know what I mean? And
again, and I don't want to shit on Giannis, because it sounds like I'm shitting on Giannis. I don't.
That part where you said he's not a good player, that would be clipped by everybody out of context.
The thing to me is, and I think I brought it up before, I brought it up a lot, is he's Dwight Howard to me. He is the physical freak of nature, the athletic marvel that you just wish had some, like, a little more skill and a little, like, had a little more in the basket. And and you go like, oh, I know what I'm getting from Dwight Howard. I know what I'm getting from Giannis. There's nothing more. Season to season, I know what he is. And like right now, I think what we're seeing from Giannis, obviously he's still young, but if he continues down this trajectory, he's not going to be much better in 4 or 5 years.
Which is
He's
still
just
an
going to be
elite player, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. But like again, it comes to the thing of like this is probably his ceiling if he doesn't get something soon.
Yeah, and I think also Ben Dietrich of Cookies Hoops, he kind of had this thought last year, but he was one of the few that was anti-Giannis Defensive Player of the Year because Giannis is incredible, obviously, as a free safety. I think he's the Bucks' best defensive player last year was an elite defense. They kind of slid back this year, but if you look at his deflection numbers, his steal rate, does he guard the best player? Not usually, and all that stuff. He's like, I think he was like 80th in deflections or something like that per game and all that stuff. And it's like, is he really a Defensive Player of the Year candidate? I thought he should have won it last year, but the argument is there. You know what I mean? Like it's like he was put in a position to use his gifts to have an incredible impact on that end. But like,
absolutely, I don't blame him at all.
No.
But I don't think like when you look at the way, and again,
kind of like Anthony Davis in a sense.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Anthony Davis is this sort of, he does stuff that I've never seen before from a defensively. Like the way that he is able to cover and stick with guys, and the way that he's able to kind of fit 1 through 5, and he completely changed the way the defenses function. It's absolutely insane the way Anthony Davis changed the Lakers defense. It's crazy. But like again, I don't, with Giannis, it feels like with Anthony Davis, it feels like they're playing around Anthony Davis. Where with the Bucks, it feels like Giannis, they're playing in spite of Giannis, or they're playing around Giannis's.
They built around Giannis.
Right. It feels like it feels like everyone's funneling into Giannis's strengths rather than Anthony Davis's is empowering everyone else. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I could kind of see what you're saying there. Real quickly, I want to give you, if you're talking about impact like if impact is one of your criteria for most valuable player, not you in particular, but like anybody listening, right. The Sixers historically have been dog shit when Embiid sits, whether he goes off, whether he sits on the bench after he subs out, or he gets rested. The Sixers are a -7.5. The net rating improved yesterday after somehow coming back from 16 yesterday against the Pacers. I was ready for them to lose that game, but a -0.7 or a -7.5 net rating, that would make them 29th, right behind the Thunder and keeping distance with the catless Minnesota Timberwolves. When Embiid is on the court, just setting the filters here. This is great podcasting. Come on, internet. Embiid is a +13 when he's on the court, and that would make them first by a long shot. Like the impact this dude has, he's finally. It's not just that he's figured out some stuff. It's finally they put the right pieces around him. He's figured out double teams. And of course, he's always provided. I think when he's healthy and engaged, which he has been this year, I think he's the most impactful defender in basketball. Teams don't attempt anything at the rim when he's on the court, and they take more mid-range shots and shots that the defense wants them to take. He's been awesome this year, and I think actually, I'm not going to sit here and be one of those guys like, oh, it's not close, but I have him first almost with a bullet right now, especially with the way LeBron is kind of coasting, which is still insane. Like we said, it's still insane that he is basically second or third on everybody's list, but he's kind of coasting. But I've just been floored by the way Embiid's playing this year.
Yeah, I'd be super happy if I were you. It's pretty crazy to think about, like, and I've always been really high on Embiid. I'm
Same.
happy that I'm really happy that he's gotten over the injury concerns and he's kind of been able to.
Dude, he's a 3-level scorer as a 7-footer. Like, he's shooting 40% from mid-range, which is high efficiency. He's shooting 40% from 3. And then, of course, he puts dudes under the basket whenever he gets post position.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's also shooting nearly 11 free throws a game, and he's shooting 85% basically from the free throw line as a 7-footer that is physically imposing. I linked on Twitter a few weeks ago that Rob Mahoney piece about Embiid. It was called "Embiid is the exception to the MVP rule," and it makes me wonder now a lot of the half court concerns I had about this team come playoff time. I wonder if that's even going to matter if Embiid continues to bend basketball like this. Because if you look at it, I'm sure if you watch Sixer games and you pause it whenever Embiid has the ball on the block, just look at how many dudes are in the paint or how many dudes are looking at Embiid. It's almost, I'm not going to sit here and say Steph gravity, but the way Steph attracts 3 defenders out on the perimeter, Embiid on the block, he attracts that much attention. Like, he gets triple teamed sometimes, and it's insane. So I wanted to get our MVP rankings out here on the podcast since we're a quarter of a way through. My last question is, I'm thinking about it still. I struggle with this, but I can't get past the fact that the Nets still can't play a lick of defense outside of a 2-minute stretch where they're really engaged. But when it comes to the playoffs, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, those are the type of guys you want, especially when the defenses get tough and you need guys who could just get buckets. And I'm struggling with, because the Celtics are underperforming. Their defense is the worst it's been in the Brad Stevens era. Same with the Bucks. Their defense has not been great. I'm looking at it right now. They're 17th in defensive rating. Boston is 10th, but they could easily fall outside of the top 10. And to me, it's like, if you still have James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, it's not going to matter. I think the Sixers have clearly been the best team in the East so far this year, but are the Nets still a conference finalist in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Me too. I just want to make sure I'm not insane here, because I still grapple with the defense.
Again, it comes down to right now that, like you said, the Bucks and the Celtics are disappointing, especially defensively. Because to me, again, I think we talked about it before. You need to you're not going to stop them, but you need to at least slow them down, because you're going to get easy buckets. So as long as you can stop them once or twice, you're good. You just stop them once or twice, and you're going to score every time. Don't worry about it. And then you just get into it's the fighting game lead. It's the fighting game thing of, like, you just hit them once, you get that health bar down a little bit, and then you run away for the rest of the timer. That's all you do, right? All you do is you stop them a couple times and you just score. That's all it is. But yeah, like, the thing with the Nets is, I was laughing so hard. They gave up 49 points.
I need to watch that whole game. I saw the last minute of it, but they gave up
that many points in a regular, like, no overtime needed. They gave that up in 4 quarters, and someone said, well, Harden wasn't playing. And I said, what, you think Harden's going to help you defensively stop that?
He's going to add like 2 more step back threes. That's about it.
I was like, what do you think's going to happen? So yeah, it's concerning. The defense is highly concerning to me. To me, it puts them in the conference finals. I don't know if they're going to beat the Sixers, but even if they do, there's no way in hell they're beating the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Nuggets.
I would agree with the Lakers and the Clippers. The Nuggets, they are also one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. So I would be hesitant, very hesitant actually, to say that the Nuggets can beat the Nets, because KD will roast Michael Porter Jr. Gary Harris Jr., he's a good defender, but he forgot how to shoot a basketball. And James Harden, I think, I'm looking at the matchups and thinking about the matchups in that potential series.
I think it always comes down to Jokic, and like,
Jokic would have to be like 30, 12, and 12 for them to.
My thing is, like, I think Jokic would carve him up, and I think he'd make life tough.
Absolutely,
defensively, just the size alone.
Yeah. But if it's the Lakers and the Clippers, which I cannot wait to see tomorrow's game, by the way, or today's game when this podcast comes out. The Clippers and Nets play, and that'll be awesome to watch.
Test. That's a test.
It'll be a good test. But I just have to say the fact that Kevin Durant is still averaging like over 37 and 7 basically, like coming off an Achilles. Like the fact that he's doing this coming off into torn Achilles, like he might replace Dominique Wilkins as like the standard bearer for Achilles recovery, because this is the third time in his career he's averaging 30 points a game in a season, averaging nearly 31, and he's shooting a career high 44% from three and still going to the free throw line a bunch. This dude is insane, is basically what I'm trying to say. He's still the second best player in the world to me. And I'm just glad Kevin Durant is healthy. That's all. Definitely
with you there. So before we go, I have one last kind of fun question, because I like to end off on fun questions, Jordan. Okay. Who is your favorite NBA player of all time that never played for one of your teams?
Shit.
Because I thought about this the other night, and it was it was easier answered than I thought to come up with.
Okay, so
like a player like Dan, I
was a huge Brandon Roy fan in high school.
Okay,
I loved Brandon Roy. And you know the respect Kobe had for Brandon Roy. But I thought that dude can do everything. He was smooth. He wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he got to his spots. He could handle. He had kind of like that early step back, kind of before Harden. Obviously, Harden has made it into his own, and it's a unique unto itself. But like, he had the pull up. He could shoot the three. He could handle. He could pass, and it broke my heart when he started breaking down with injuries. And he was one of my favorite players to watch. I would probably say Brandon Roy, Dwayne Wade, and T-Mac would be those three that I watched, that I loved watching growing up. Like, I loved all of them, obviously, but like those three in particular. I remember when Dwayne Wade made his finals run in 06 against the Mavs. He had those sick ass Converse, those Dwayne Wade Converse shoes, but he always wore high socks. And so going into that summer, that was going into my freshman year of high school, and the basketball team had a summer program, and they gave us uniforms and stuff like that. And they gave us, team socks. And I wore those high socks like I was Dwayne Wade. And I had Wade shoes. I had the Converse shoes. And, I would try to jog like Dwayne Wade after I score. You know how players have that little home run shot after they score? I tried to act like that for a bit. But I'd probably say Brandon Roy and Dwayne Wade were my two favorite players to watch.
So mine are D Wade, T Mac, and then I had Penny Hardaway. Those are like my three favorite players.
Yeah, you're pulling up Penny Hardaway on the YouTubes all the time.
Yeah, Penny Hardaway to me was like Magic Johnson, but in like 90s Magic Johnson, just like fucking he's so smooth. He's got the 90s swag, but he has the Magic like size and touch, and like he has
those Magic pinstripe jerseys are fire.
Yeah. Oh my god, all those
especially the all black, the black and blue pinstripe Magic jersey. I love that jersey. It's one of my favorites.
But yeah, Penny's awesome to watch, and then D Wade growing up was like a huge thing, and then T Mac. So I used to watch every time the Lakers played the Heat or the when I fell in love with T Mac with Rockets Magic, it was Magic kind of Rockets T Mac, like so. Whenever they played. Anytime they matched up, I had to watch it and I had to take a look.
Oh yeah, anytime Kobe matched up with those two, that was must see TV. I love going back on YouTube and looking up highlights of that too. I remember the opening night. I think it was the 2009 season when the Rockets played the Lakers. Me and the homies, we went to Mountain Mike's and to watch that. And I think T-Mac had like trying to remember. I think Kobe had like 35 or something like that, and T-Mac had 40. And the Lakers still. Now I got to look it up because now my memory is kind of shot. But the Lakers and Rockets were on TNT opening night, and Kobe and T-Mac played when he was on the Rockets before his knee started giving out, and that was fun. Those two, and Kobe versus Dwayne Wade and Kobe versus Brandon Roy. Every time that happened, I had to make sure I had to find like an illegal stream, statute of limitations, and or find whoever had the Lakers channel on, because I didn't have the I didn't get the Fox Sports West package often, so I had to so I'd either do an illegal stream, or if it was on a national TV game, or I'd go over to the homie George's house and he had the Lakers channel on. But those anytime Kobe faced up against one of those guys, it was must see.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to that too, one of my favorite teams of all time was that early 2000s, maybe late 2000s Rockets teams.
Late 2000s.
Yeah, the T-Mac Yao Rockets teams, because I used to love watching Yao too, because I thought Yao was such a special player. And I think people really kind of underestimate how skilled Yao was, because everyone just calls about the size, right? And I was like, no, dude, Yao had the size, but he had some of the best touch I've ever seen. And he had some great footwork. Like, he shouldn't be able to move the way he moves for a guy his size, but he could move because he had the great footwork.
Yep.
And
he was what was he? He was a 83% free throw shooter for his career. Like, he had the mid range. It was just a shame that the foot injury kind of derailed his career.
I mean, to be
fair, remember in the
you can't be that big and not have some kind of side effect.
That is also true, but it still sucks nonetheless.
Yeah,
but you remember in the 2009 playoffs when the Rockets took the Lakers to 7 games without T-Mac. I loved that Rockets team before the season started, especially when they traded for Ron Artest that year or that summer. And I was like, oh, a big three of Ron Artest, Tracy McGrady, and Yao Ming. And then that's when T-Mac injuries started piling up, unfortunately, because the year before that, the Rockets had that 26 game winning streak, and it was ridiculous. But those late Rockets teams, that's a sneaky what if.
Well, because remember too, they had Battier and they had Rafer Alston, super underrated.
Chuck Hayes,
dude, those teams are good, man.
Yeah, and they were coached by Rick Adelman.
Hayes with all his teeth.
Yeah, and they had Rick Adelman too. Like it's just a shame that team got derailed by injuries.
Yeah, very sad. But yeah, that's about it. Anything else, Jordan? I think we've
No, I think we covered everything for today. Like I said, looking forward to the Nets Clippers tomorrow. That's going to be a big test. And also, I'd imagine it's going to be a high scoring game, because even though the Clippers have really good wing defenders, it's Kevin Durant and James Harden. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. To me, it's going to set the tone for what the Nets are the rest of the season. I don't think it says much about the Clippers, but I think it says a lot about what the Nets are.
Yep.
But yeah. So thanks, guys, for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
The P.O. Beat.